Entra External ID. We'll show some overview slides, we'll dive into a couple demos, and then we'll reserve the rest of the call for any questions you may have. So you can go ahead and leave the questions as comments right below the video, and then we'll answer them at the end of the session. So with that, Pawan, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Laura, taking control now. Okay, can you all see the next slide? All right. So I'm first of all thrilled to be sharing our progress on our next generation customer identity and access management, or CIAM platform. It's called Microsoft Entra External ID. I'd like to start by first thanking all of you for taking the time, and especially our Azure AD B2C customers who've trusted us and allowed us to serve you over these years. There's going to be some interesting content today that I think all of you will find really valuable. So to begin, Microsoft Entra External ID, then our next generation CIAM product has been in GA since May. Now, many of you are aware of Azure AD External Identities, which encompasses Azure AD B2C and B2B. We have many customers using it, and I'd say with the scope of just about 50% of the scenarios that Entra External ID is going to address. Now, that's super exciting to me, and I hope to you as well, because it's going to bring so much value to so many more customers. And when I say value, it's in terms of lighting up new scenarios for you, new integration and collaboration points with the Microsoft products, for example, SharePoint Online and the Dynamics suite of products, and also with the rest of the third-party ecosystem. Let's go over the high-level scenarios that a CIAM product typically encompasses. So the first one is consumer. This is your typical retail scenario where your end user goes in and does the transaction and checks out. We've been doing really well on Azure AD B2C with this, and we're going to bring all the goodness, or we brought all that goodness and a much more security focus in Entra External ID. Now, the second one is business customer scenario. Now, this is a net new capability that you're going to see in Entra External ID. And this will help you delegate administration to your trusted distributors, suppliers, agents for authorization and user management needs. And finally, the business collaboration. Now, this is where partners collaborate with employees of the organization. It will continue to grow feature rich with, say, advanced governance capabilities and customization capabilities. And this is just the beginning of our journey. You see that there are three pillars we've highlighted here: security, developer-friendly, and fully customizable experiences. I'm going to be focusing next on the secure and integrated experience, and my colleagues will cover some of the other things. We really want to make External ID the most secure, integrated, and governable solution for applications and users. So moving on to the security pillar. I think we all agree that security starts with identity. And we at Microsoft, we believe in a multi-layered approach and focus on prevention first. Now, it's also going to be a fine balance where we want users to have a frictionless experience and yet secure. So let's kick off into this pillar and also see a demo. Now, there are two pieces to our security offering. I'd say the first one is the bare minimum, or what we call baseline security features that come at tenant creation. And the second are premium security capabilities. And I say premium, yes, security has a price associated with it, as you all will appreciate. And that we'll discuss next after this. What you see here are all the baseline security capabilities we include as part of our base offering for all customers. So we manage these on behalf of organizations or you to keep you safe or your users safe until they're ready to manage your own identity security story. Now, some of these are always on by default at tenant creation, while some will need configuration, and our documentation will explain that. I do want to note that none of these baseline features can replace the rich premium add-on security capabilities that I'm going to talk about next. Now, there are broadly 4 categories here. Without going into too much of detail for obvious reasons, let me provide an overview. The first one is bot attacks. Very obvious, at the basic level, we do some IP level, tenant level, application level, feature, user creation level, and various layers of IP throttling to mitigate bot attacks. Now, DDoS, distributed denial of service. Our gateway takes care of most frequently occurring or common DDoS attacks, layer 3, 4, reflection attacks, and such. The next one is brute force. Now, through throttling at various levels and also using our feature called Smart Lockout, we block attackers who are repeatedly trying to, brute force compromise accounts. And finally, the common HTTP vulnerabilities and implementation flaws. Think of slow rate attacks or rapid reset vulnerabilities. They'll be taken care of. Now, across the board, we will provide you logs of all the premium security features in report-only mode, even in the basic product. Now, let's get on with the premium security features and what's our vision there. Now, before we dive into the full defense in depth premium security offering, I want to take a step back and acknowledge that the security solutions used for workforce scenarios are necessary but not sufficient for CIAM scenarios. And I'll kind of point out 3 reasons for this. The first one is that self-service sign-up is primarily a CIAM scenario. So in workforce, the employer or an admin and in that capability creates the user or invites the guests, whereas in CIAM scenarios, the end user initiates account creation through self-service sign-up. Now, these end user identities are not always known or verified. They will include personal email address or social identities and such. And the second one is sign-in life cycles. In workforce, it's a little more consistent or periodic frequency. In case of CIAM, it fluctuates between sporadic, example, you're ordering a pizza or buying a car, to somewhat recurring patterns, like if you're doing prescription refills. And finally, telephony SMS. It's a widely utilized MFA method as much as it contains its risk. In workforce scenarios, organizations can dictate how their employees sign in, when to use MFA, what MFA methods are acceptable, and so on. In CIAM scenarios, customers must be more careful with these choices as they may impact end user usage and satisfaction. Now, to account for these unique security vulnerabilities for CIAM, we are taking a multi-layered security posture. And in this diagram, if we start from the left, so it starts with WAF, essentially protecting your applications from DOS attacks, moving in to our own gateway and a conditional access, which provides sign-up fraud protection, as well as sign-in identity protection for compromise and account takeovers. So this is all part of the prevention that we are providing. Now, the interesting part here is that we want to give you the best solution that is available out there, because fraudsters are continuously innovating, and so we need to keep up to date. So in addition to our own first-party fraud solutions, or account takeover solutions, or WAF solutions, we are also going to give you easy access to some of the best third-party providers as well in product. Now, when we get away from prevention, the next is observability, monitoring. So we're going to tightly integrate with Azure Monitor to give you that end-to-end operational view and set alerts in case of any fraudulent events. And finally, going in, we're going to be integrating with Microsoft Entra Verified ID for verification purposes, as well as Sentinel, which is our CM solution, that goes threat hunting and gives you that feedback loop, offline feedback loop to improve your models or your conditional access policies. Now let's go through a quick demo on security. Now, I mentioned before that balance between security and flexibility is a competing need. And so this is where I'm going to talk about step-up authentication and why it plays a vital role. For example, an application allows users to sign in with minimal authentication steps like username and password or social identity without the need for MFA. Now, upon a risky action, like say a high-value transaction or accessing sensitive data, the application requires the user to step up and prompt for additional credentials. Now, for the demo, I'll use the Woodgrove Groceries app. Woodgrove Groceries is a global retail food store that has integrated with Microsoft Enter External ID. They want to introduce MFA as a step up when the shopping cart exceeds $50 at checkout. Now let me navigate to the woodgrove.com. Okay, this is the Woodgrove Groceries webpage. Let me sign in using my email address. Okay, move on to the next, enter my password and hit sign in. Okay, I think I'm signed in now, yes. And I'm going to go add a few items to my cart that exceed $50 in overall price, and I hit checkout. Now, for this demo, the $50 is kind of the threshold, so it has to prompt me. So there you go. Your shopping contains value greater than $50. So it prompted me for an MFA. So I'm going to go look up my email for my code, enter the code here, verify, and that's it. So my checkout has completed successfully and my transaction is complete. Now let me do this again. This time, because I've already done this once, I'm going to check out again with a value of over $50, and you see now I've gone in. Because I've already done my MFA once, I've proven that I am the person who I am. It's not going to prompt me again the second time. If you want to know how to set this up, please refer to our documentation or reach out to us. Thank you so much. Stephen?
Okay, thanks very much. So just in case we missed the introduction at the beginning there, I'm Stephen, one of the product managers on the external ID team, thinking about customization and extensibility, which we're going to dive into here. So for anyone who's worked in the customer identity access management CIAM space before, you're probably acutely aware that the big difference, or one of the big differences between working with employees and working with your end users or customers is customization. So being able to tailor the experience to those end users. Okay, so I'll walk through a couple of examples here. The thing to keep in mind is that in the external ID product, we have a couple of different, what I'll call levels of customization. There's things that you can do in the built-in product, and then there's things that you can do by adding your own logic. So let's take a look at the built-in capabilities first. As you'll see in a demo here in a moment, just through our admin portal, you can apply many of the common customizations that would be needed for a customer-facing application. So that's things like localizing the app, adding your own colors and logos, branding assets, that type of thing. And you can also configure what the sign-in, sign-up experiences look like. So what attributes are collected from the user, the steps they have to go through, federation options, things like that. So let's take a look at how this is done through the portal, best illustrated with an example here. So hopefully the video is playing okay for folks here. So this is just a recording of what the experience looks like in the portal. So you can see that there's a variety of customization options. The one that we're going to take a look at here is customizing branding for the organization. So in the external ID world, you'll have set up a tenant for your customer-facing applications. And as you can see here, you can supply the assets that would be shown in the sign-in or the sign-up experience. So things like the background image, the colors, fave icons. You can see here that we're setting the placement and layout of the sign-in page. including things like adding a style sheet so you can customize look and feel. Logos, so all of the different customer-facing assets, as well as things like links on the sign-in page. So privacy policies, terms of use, you can supply all of those for your customer-facing applications. And as you'll see here in a moment, you can do all of this customization on a sort of per flow basis. So if you do need to customize things specifically to sign up or to sign in, that's possible. We'll also see customization of things like the strings and the text that the user is going to see, as well as the ability to localize that. So to supply different strings for different languages and locales. So there's a pretty broad set of just built-in customization capabilities to the look and feel of applications that's available entirely out of the box. And so this comes with the default capabilities of an Entra external ID tenant. Okay, so let's wrap that one up. And then, so that's the built-in capabilities, what you can do with a product out of the box. And the next thing I'm going to talk about then is this notion of extensibility. So this is bringing your own logic to the platform. So I'll run through this diagram just from the left to right to illustrate the flow of things. So as a user interacts with external ID or Entra itself, this platform, this extensibility mechanism works for either employee-based configurations or customer-based configurations in external ID. There's an event-based model that we've introduced. And so if you've come from the B2C world, you're probably familiar with concepts like API connectors. This allows you to call an API during an auth flow in B2C. And so this is the concept that's replacing API connectors. So as a user interacts now with Entra or Entra external ID, these events get triggered. The events then allow you to invoke an API call at an endpoint that you control. So whether you want to run that in the Azure cloud or have some legacy APIs or something running in another cloud, you call your own code. And so that code could be, implemented as a logic app on Azure or as Azure function. We have good tutorials and documentation for that. But it does essentially allow you to interact with your own systems and build your own logic. And so for things like pulling in data from an outside data source to augment a token, you could go to your external CRM system, for example. All right, so once you run your own logic there invoked at the API endpoint, then you return a response to us. The response defines the action to take and some of the data that should be supplemented into the auth flow. And then the auth experience will continue from there. So I think this is best illustrated with an example. So if we go on here, we can take a look at what this looks like in practice. So as Pawan alluded to, we have Woodgrove Groceries here. Woodgrove Groceries, you can actually go to woodgrovegroceries.com for our demo. You can see that in this experience, there's some customization that can be applied through custom auth extensions. So you can bring in your own custom branding assets, for example. So if you want to dynamically brand per application or based on the user, time of day. You saw some of the federation options there, Google, Facebook, and we're actively working on things like SAML and OpenID Connect Federation in general. So the next thing you see here is that as part of the sign-up flow, yes, the built-in capabilities allow you to customize what's shown on the screen there, what attributes are collected. But through these API calls, you can actually add your own logic. So things like pre-selecting particular values, pre-filling that promo code that you see there, and then validating things. So you just saw that there was a particular country or region, and your own business logic was applied to validate. Okay, so then if we swap over to the portal to see how this is actually set up, you can see that there's a set of these event points that are already defined. So we have a couple in public preview right now related to augmenting tokens and collecting attributes. If you create a new custom auth extension, so some logic that you want invoked at the particular event points, then you can see that you'll supply a name for this custom auth extension, the endpoint that you'd like to call. So this could be an endpoint that you run. We're also working with a vendor ecosystem. So in the example here, it's showing something like perhaps working with an identity verification vendor during attribute collection, for example. And then, as I alluded to, you can run your own code or your own workflows once one of these external API calls is triggered. So, for example, in a B2B scenario, you might want to kick off some sort of approval or workflow to get the user set up. And then once the user is done, though, one of the last things I alluded to was pulling in extra data, and that's the information that you can use to further customize the experience. So in this case, perhaps you went into the CRM system and look up that this is a gold member, it's part of the loyalty program, and you can customize the experience based on that, give preferential pricing or remember preferences and history, all the types of things that you would need in order to build a rich customer-facing application. Okay, so that's an overview of the built-in capabilities for customization and the things you can build yourself. We are actively working on this, so if you're interested in finding out more about any of these capabilities, you can join our NDA Identity Advisors community, and we'd be happy to give you access to the features that we're actively working on, and I would love to hear your feedback. Okay, so with that, if we're doing okay on time, I'll hand it back to you, Laura. And I think we may have some questions. We'll have lots of time at the end to answer those.
Yes, awesome. And as Stephen mentioned, we do have our Microsoft Entra Identity Advisor. So if you would like to join, I'll put in the link right in the chat. And if you have any questions, feel free to add them into the chat here. While those come in, I'll go ahead and just point you guys to a couple of our resources. First of all, we have our website if you would like to know any additional information about external ID. For any technical documentation, we've linked here our docs as well. And you can get started. External ID is free for the first 50,000 MAU, and you can get started at aka.ms/tryexternalid. And then you can also start governing your guest users with ID governance for guests. And to kick off the question, since we do have a slide about it, we did get a question about external ID pricing. So I'll go ahead and flash open this slide here. So how external ID is consumptive pricing. So you will only pay for what you use. External ID is free for the first 50K MAU, so monthly active users. Then above that, it will be 3 cents per active user. And we are offering a discount for the first year for 1.6 cents per MAU. And as for any add-on features, we're positioning any premium feature as an add-on. These do not have a free tier, and for now we've released that ID governance will be 75 cents per MAU. And with that, let me go back to our resources slide, and we'll start queuing up some of the questions. So one quick question we've gotten is, what is happening with the future of Azure AD B2C? This one, Pawan, do you mind taking this one? I can flash up a slide with some resources.
Absolutely. So let me start by saying that Azure AD B2C is not going anywhere. It remains fully supported. And existing customers of Azure AD B2C, you can continue to use the product and create new tenants with no disruption. Okay, and you can do this and we'll continue to support this at least until 2030. And by then you would be told about the migration plans and support, and we'll take care of you there in terms of how you migrate over to the next gen Entra External ID platform. And now for new customers, so there is a period where Entra External ID and Azure AD B2C will be available for new customers. And this will end May of next year, so May 2025, beginning then. Any new customers wanting to use Azure AD B2C, it'll be closed for them. But again, I want to reiterate, existing Azure AD B2C customers, you will remain fully supported. You can continue to create new tenants. No problem for your business continuity, at least until 2030. And by then, we'll give you more information on the migration plans.
Awesome.
Laura?
Thank you. Go back here. Okay. Next question we've gotten is, am I right in saying all changes are being made to the external tenant and workforce tenant or B2B is remaining as is? I could take that one. So yes, all previous Azure AD B2B experiences remain the same. B2B is now just part of Microsoft Enter External ID. So when we look at the MAU count and like, for example, the add-on ID governance, that's applicable to any external user, whether they're in your workforce configuration or in your external configuration. Next question. We've been getting a lot of questions about using custom policies in Azure AD B2C and how we can achieve similar levels of customization within Microsoft Entra External ID.
So I can take that, Laura. And you're right. So one of the good and bad things about Azure AD B2C is with custom policies where it offers you the complete flexibility, but it's also highly complex for you to be using those XML code and do all the things that you want. Sometimes it even allows customers to do things that are not secure. So moving forward in interactional ID, first of all, we are getting rid of custom policies, getting rid of XML. And I think that's what most of the customers or almost all the customers wanted. But we know the top scenarios, the most used scenarios that you addressed in Azure AD B2C. So we're going to solve it not just with user flows. Yes, I understand user flows is out of the box capabilities. There are only a few bells and whistles you can provide, but combine that with the extensibility that Stephen just explained and the eventing platform that he's going to build to give you those hooks into creating the user journeys that you want. So that's going to give you that extensibility to get to what you were doing in custom policies. Now, not just that. Secondly, we also have native SDKs now. So we've already launched native SDKs for Android and iOS, and we're going to continue launching for other applications, SPA and so on. And once we do that, you'll be able to use our SDKs and even our APIs directly to completely customize your journeys pixel perfect. And so that's another way to achieve what you wanted that you were doing in custom policies.
Awesome. And then I've noticed we have been getting a lot of questions about roadmap. While we don't publicly disclose any roadmap information, I highly recommend you join our Identity Advisors group. We'll be doing like a roadmap session and an NDA session. So if you have those questions, we can answer those there. I've added the AKA link in the comments. So next question we've gotten is when it comes to logs, export, and monitoring, should we still use the same approach with Azure Lighthouse, similarly to the scenario with log export from Azure AD B2C? Pawan, do we have any guidance there?
Sorry, I lost my thing for a moment there. Laura, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah.
I lost my connection.
No worries. When it comes to logs, export, and monitoring, should we still use the approach with Azure Lighthouse similarly to the scenario with log export from Azure AD B2C?
Excellent question. Yes. So we are right now at parity with Azure AD B2C in interactional ID. So yes, we can use Lighthouse to begin with, while that's not the ideal way that we want you to do. So stay tuned where you would not have to use Lighthouse and directly use your subscription within your interactional ID tenant to integrate with Azure Monitor and get your logs in there.
Perfect. Stephen, we have a question directed for you. Can you provide some examples of functions for the Azure events you mentioned?
Well, we have a good set of tutorials. I can provide the link. So I'll put it into the chat, which I'm not sure makes it to anybody, but perhaps the facilitators here can help get that out. Otherwise, the other way to get there is just to look online, do a search for custom auth extensions tutorial, and you'll find some tutorial material there. We have a couple of different ways to help you create Azure function. There's a sort of raw, here's how to set up an Azure function, use built-in authentication capabilities, that type of stuff. And then we also have a set of libraries. So you can run the libraries and they'll scaffold up a Azure function for you. So we try to make that as easy as possible. You do have to write your own code, but try to make that as easy as possible. So hopefully we can get those resources to you.
Cool. And yeah, we'll just add them into the replies in the comments.
Yeah. Thanks.
Cool. Another question, when it comes to authentication through your Entra external IDs, will you support usernames for onboarding and login flows?
Yeah, so by usernames, I think folks are probably thinking what's sometimes called as a flat username or basically a user supplied username that's not their email address. So that is a common one that we've heard. So folks like airlines, for example, would like to use a frequent flyer number. And it's something we're actively looking into. So if you are interested in that, please join the advisors group there, and we'd love to chat with you and get details on the use case and the scenarios we'd like to support there.
Perfect. Then this one we have covered, but in case people have missed, I'll bring it up again. How will the migration process be from B2C to external ID? Are there any tools, or how will that look like?
So I think migration in general, what I would say is, stay tuned. We want to make it as easy as possible for people who are using B2C to migrate. And so there's a couple of efforts that we've got going that will help enable a seamless migration in the long term. But for now, B2C is stable and is a product you can use for you continue to use for your users. So there's no rush to migrate. But in the fullness of time, we'll provide a full tool set there. Pawan, do you want to weigh in on any more?
I think you summed it up well, Stephen.
Okay. The other thing I would say.
Oh, go ahead.
So the other thing I would say in the migration space is I can appreciate that there may be people coming from outside of the Microsoft ecosystem. So customers may have homegrown solutions they've built up over the years for their customer-facing applications. They may be on, other technology providers. We'd love to talk to you there. We are actively working on migration infrastructure to allow you to bring data from outside data source, the custom auth extension models that I alluded to. And so we've got one actively under development. So if you've got a scenario where you do need to move users from an outside data source, please reach out, and we'd love to chat and show you what's under development there.
Awesome. And kind of going off that, someone asked if they're not using any custom policies today in Azure AD B2C, what's the best way to take advantage of all the innovation in external ID?
So if you're not using custom policies, get in touch with us, please. There might be an opportunity that you can benefit from Entra external IDs much sooner. So please reach out to one of our team members.
Yep. And the easiest way to do so is probably to join Identity Advisors, and then once we hold a session, we can connect with you there.
Yeah, and I think there was some questions about how to actually join the Identity Advisor. So if we could get the
yes, I will post the link into the chat one more time if anyone missed it. But it will come up as a comment. So just look for my name and then the link will be there. There we go, just posted. Another question we've gotten is, are Terraform templates or ARM templates available for setting up external ID? I'm trying to do this using infrastructure as code.
Great question. We don't have Terraform support yet, but it's been a repeated ask from customers. ARM templates to an extent, yes, you can use that. And I think there should be documentation on ARM, and we'll keep you posted on Terraform in the future.
We got another question. You mentioned handling the high customizability of B2C via native auth. How does that integrate with features like MFA, conditional access, ID protection, and the need for these highly customized journeys to be consistent across multiple applications?
Yes, I did say that, and your questions are spot on. We are working on providing you the hooks to essentially any feature that you are able to access through the portal, through user flows. For example, conditional access identity protection will be available to you through your APIs as well. Try out our Android and iOS SDKs that we've released. Obviously, there are some missing features there, but we'll continue to build them and we'll look for your feedback.
Perfect. Let me refresh to see. How do premium security features work when customer accounts are not local?
So by not local, if you're referring to, say, social IDPs, so WAF will still be applicable, but if you think of sign up fraud and so on, so there is one element in there which is email reputation. So email reputation is one of the many signals. So if it falls under that signal, then it will be evaluated appropriately. It's a very deep question. And it depends on the situation and what if it's a trusted email domain versus non-trusted and so on, because you can always set up custom email sign in signups. So yeah, so we can, if you can reach out offline, we can dive a little more into exactly the signals and the characteristics we are looking into.
Perfect. And then another one that kind of ties into Azure AD B2C versus external ID. Someone asked for any new implementation starting today that primarily focuses on consumers. Would it be better to start implementing the app through Azure AD B2C, or should we look at external ID first?
The first preference I'd say is to try Enter External ID. That's our recommendation for all new customers. And only if it does not meet your needs at this time. Now, granted, there is some disparity in features that are available in Azure AD B2C versus Enter External ID, right? There are some features like governance and admin management that are better, our partner supplier management that are better in Enter External ID versus Azure AD B2C. And similarly, there are some custom policy flexibility that you get in Azure AD B2C. So, and we are patching that feature disparity up and making Enter External ID even more powerful. So if Enter External ID meets your needs, we'd love you to go with that. If it doesn't, and if you need help, reach out to us again. We'll help you out. But if it doesn't, we recommend you can still go with Azure AD B2C. As I said, it's going to be supported and will continue to be until 2030. So first, Enter External ID. If it doesn't work, Azure AD B2C.
Right. Stevie, we got another question about the web-based UI. Do you plan to share any templates, HTML, CSS, as it was in the case of Azure AD B2C, to extend default UI that is currently editable in the Microsoft Entra Admin Center?
So no templates per se right now. I mean, what I would advise is take a look at the built-in customization capabilities we've got in terms of supplying CSS and branding assets, colors, logos, and see how far you can get with that. If you really do need fine-grained customizations of flows, that's what we've been alluding to here today. I think we probably should have had a slide on our auth APIs. So the set of APIs that allow you to build an authentication user experience yourself and then orchestrate it through some underlying APIs. And so there you could certainly build everything that you need. And I think it would be pretty helpful there to have a good set of templates for basic and common flows that people may be trying to implement, but highly customizing. So I think that's something we should chat with you and with the team more about, what we can and should support in terms of giving you some templates or guidance there. So stay tuned. The auth APIs are brand new, so we're still, getting the basics in place there. But I think having well-lit path is pretty reasonable.
Perfect. Thank you. One more just come in. Is it possible to implement home realm discovery in external ID? I think we've gotten this one a couple of times as well.
Not yet, but it is on our plans. That's a short answer for now.
That's a good promo to, again, register for Microsoft Entra Identity Advisors if you want to get more details about roadmap or early access to any of the features that we're currently working on. I did see a question about developer resources, so I will post a link. If you have not seen it yet, we have a great developer center that has code samples, videos, documentation, blogs, and more, so that your developers have all the tools they need to start securing their web and mobile apps. So I will add in that link as a comment right now. And let me scan quickly through. I believe we've gotten to the majority of the questions. Again, any roadmap questions we are not going to publicly address, but again, you can reach out to us via identity advisors. Let me do a final scan. Paul and Steven, any other resources you'd recommend people take a look at while we wait for some additional questions to come in?
The best thing I'd really, more than all the documentation resources, go try it out, try out external ID, spin up a tenant, go try the native auth experiences, and we'd love your feedback because we are raring to prioritize the next things on our roadmap. In fact, that's a side chat most of us are having now. And so your feedback will help us. It'll influence us to do the right things and get you the right things at the right time.
Awesome. Oh, we did get another question. How is NIS2, or how will NIS2 be affecting external ID in Europe in the next coming years? Any thoughts or insight on this?
I'd need a little more detail on that when we say, so Azure all up follows, the standards, European standards, Australian standards, and so on. So I need a little more detail on that question.
Well, we can follow up with that one offline to get more details. Awesome. I think that was all the questions. We can wait 1 or 2 more minutes. If not, we can close a little early. Let me refresh.
So I did
check if we
see
have any.
one there in the comments about custom auth extensions and adding more. So again, we don't want to commit or discuss too much the specific roadmap, but I would say in general, yes, the approach here is that in B2C, we had custom auth, or we had the API connectors, and at many points in the flow, you could interact with external systems. So we're really trying to enable a lot of the same capabilities with custom auth extensions in external ID, but we're prioritizing the most common use cases. So I think as you saw in the demo there, we have introduced one for token issuance to allow you to mint additional claims in the token. We've added the ones for attribute collection. And then we have a few others that are in active development around enabling things like per app or fine-grained branding, custom OTP emails and other communications, and then migration, as I alluded to. So we are actively working on adding more. And I think, as we've said a few times now, like in the identity advisors community, we will be, getting input on those ones that we're actively working on. So stay tuned for those.
Oh, and here we have two more questions. One is, do you plan to do any differentiation when it comes to the name Microsoft Entra External ID? B2B customer is now confusing for some clients. They're not aware that they have to create a separate tenant. So I could take part of this one. So all external users fall under external ID. This means that external ID works both in your external tenant and your workforce tenant if you want to invite any guest users or collaborate with your workforce. So we are working on improving our messaging and documentation to make sure people know once they're getting started, they have two options with the different tenant configurations and what that looks like. But Stephen and Pawan, did you have anything else you wanted to add there?
No, I want to thank everyone for your time and for all the questions. Some of the questions were spot on, and we look forward to working with you and learning from you.
Awesome. With that, I think, let me take a last look if we got any last minute questions. Someone is asking for the link to the step-up authentication configuration, Pawan, so we can follow up with that link to docs offline. And then the last question we'll answer, and then we can wrap it up a little early, is just RBAC support in external ID. Is that supported today?
Yes.
Cool. And we can follow up with a link to docs in case you haven't found it quite yet.
There is also a good demo on that as well, and we can share that.
Cool. So doesn't look like we have any more questions. If we didn't answer your question live or if it was about roadmap or anything, again, I'll post all the links to our Identity Advisors group and where you can find our documentation and our website and pricing resources. I'll put that into the chat. We also highly recommend you take a look at all the links we have on the side right now. And with that, any question that was left unanswered, we will follow up with you offline. So just visit the events page again, and we should be commenting by the end of the week. Well, with that, thank you so much, everyone, for the great questions. We hope to see you in the future at another Ask Me Anything event or in our Identity Advisors community.